When is it a states' rights issue and when does it become more of a federal issue? For example, I mean, slavery. We're going to have a states' rights issue on slavery? No, obviously slavery is a much larger issue from a federal government standpoint that they felt like they needed to get involved in. So where do you draw the line on some of this
the
stuff?
Constitution. I mean, that's really the Constitution of the United States.
But when it comes to moral issues, that's the thing. Which is a little bit more moral from a federal perspective than a states' rights issue?
Well, and I think in the case of federal, that discrimination would not be allowed, would not be tolerated. The discrimination when it comes to the Constitution is not allowed. But that also applies to religious freedom, and I want to make it really clear that I support religious freedom. When it comes to a store owner being able to discriminate on the basis of religion, that right now is not allowed. That would require legislation that currently does not. That would be legislation that would allow for discrimination that currently, like I say, is not allowed. Okay. As a church, legislation that allows me to be able to practice my religion, that I don't have to host a reception for gays, if that's something that as a church member I find abhorrent, or that I don't have to, as a member of a synagogue, I don't have to host a Christian reception in my synagogue. That's your church. That's your religion. You should be able to practice that unabated.
So let me play devil's advocate here, because there's a lot of folks that say, well, you're mentioning the First Amendment. The First Amendment, a lot of Christians feel, well, that's great. The First Amendment then, are you saying is fine within the four walls of your church, but now if you're going to take it outside, the bakers, the florists, and others, where they feel like they're exercising
in the case of the bakers, the baker has to sell the cake, but the baker doesn't have to decorate the cake. That's the First Amendment that comes to play. You don't have to decorate the cake, but you're in business, you got to sell the cake.
Okay.
And if you want to deal with the bakers specifically, I'll sign legislation to deal with the Nazi that wants to buy, or the Nazi that wants to buy a cake from the Jewish cake baker and wants it decorated. I will sign legislation allowing for that discrimination to take place.
So just so I understand, I mean, not to get in the weeds too much here, but what you're, in essence, are you saying that, for example, let's say someone came into a bakery, a gay customer, and wanted a cake for their wedding. You're saying the person, the Christian business owner, would have to sell the cake, the wedding cake, but wouldn't necessarily sell a blank wedding, cake, and so that's the interesting.
Yeah,
I never heard put that way before. That's
that's the reality of the law. You're in business. You got to sell your product. And if you allowed for discrimination on the basis, and David, this is the point I'm trying to make. I vetoed hate crime legislation while I was governor. I can't tell you how many pieces of hate crime legislation I vetoed, because in my opinion, that was thought crime. You're going to convict me on the basis of my intention of throwing a rock through a window, as opposed to, look, I threw the rock through the window. Prosecute me on the fact that I threw the rock. But you're going to prosecute me on what was going through my mind? So now, religious freedom. I come in to buy the cake, and based on someone's judgment, I'm the antithesis of their religion.
Interesting.
And I don't want to be a part of that. And I think that you could have discrimination that would exist in ways that are currently unimaginable. That's my opinion.